Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Welcome everyone to the last Sunday Halaqa before the month of Ramadan. As you know, the next week will be Ramadan, so we will be in fasting. We won't have Sunday Halaqa in the mornings of fasting. Usually Saturday nights tend to be pretty late nights, but either way, we usually don't do anything in the morning during the month of Ramadan. So we will have a whole set of events, or I guess events in quotation marks, every evening. It'll be on YouTube, through Zoom to YouTube. So you don't have to worry about Zoom. You just come on to this channel right here, and you'll have everything that'll sort of give you some guide throughout the night. Just something that will give you a feeling that there are people around doing the same thing, and a little bit of a beginning and an end time. So after iftar, we'll have a short halaqah here, talk about certain verses of the Quran, and then after that we'll break for our Taraweeh. And Taraweeh will be for about 45 minutes or so. We'll come back with a dua from Qari Zahid or Qari Basit, whichever of them is free, and then that'll be the end of our night. And then after suhoor, we'll be back on again, this time doing some adhkar, just some of dhikr of the morning. It's good to do that, and that'll give us some structure to our day. All right, so with that, let's begin with our dua and then go straight to Al-Adab Al-Mufrad, which is we do our halaqah on. So, and then we could take your comments and go to the live chat. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. أعوذ بكلمات الله التامات من شر ما خلق. أعوذ بكلمات الله التامات من شر ما خلق. أعوذ بكلمات الله التامات من شر ما خلق. بسم الله الذي لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء وهو السميع العليم. بسم الله الذي لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء وهو السميع العليم. بسم الله الذي لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء وهو السميع العليم. تحصنت بذي العزة واعتصمت برب الملكوت وتوكلت على الحي الذي لا يموت. اللهم اصرف عنا الوباء بلطفك يا لطيف إنك على كل شيء قدير. تحصنت بذي العزة واعتصمت برب الملكوت وتوكلت على الحي الذي لا يموت. اللهم اصرف عنا الوباء بلطفك يا لطيف إنك على كل شيء قدير. تحصنت بذي العزة واعتصمت برب الملكوت وتوكلت على الحي الذي لا يموت. اللهم اصرف عنا الوباء بلطفك يا لطيف إنك على كل شيء قدير. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين. All right, so let's get to where we left off in Al-Adab Al-Mufrad, which was hadith number 16. حدثنا محمد بن سلام قال أخبرنا جرير عن عبد الملك ابن عمير عن وراد كاتب المغيرة ابن شعبة. Al-Mughira ibn Shu'bah is a very important Sahabi. He's the one who had Abu Lu'lu al-Majusi as a slave. After the conquest of Persia, a lot of Persian soldiers came in as slaves. Now notice that these slaves are like prisoners of war. They're soldiers. They're not exactly the safest people in the world. But Abu Lu'lu al-Majusi was a soldier who had a skill in jewelry making. And so Al-Mughira ibn Shu'bah basically was his indentured servant to him. He was basically making jewelry, and he would get a small enough to eat and drink, and then Mughira ibn Shu'bah would get the rest. So he complained, Mughira is pushing me too hard. Mughira ibn Shu'bah is pushing me too hard. He complained this to Umar. Now Sayyidina Umar is not going to go and scold Al-Mughira in front of his slave. So he dismissed Abu Lu'lu al-Majusi, and he wrote Al-Mughira ibn Shu'bah a letter, like, go a little easier on your slave. But he didn't know this. Al-Mughira ibn the Abu Lu'lu al-Majusi, Abu Lu'lu literally means like the pearl maker. He didn't, al-Majusi obviously means the fire worshipper. So that's not even his real name. That's just like a nickname. He didn't know that Sayyidina Umar wrote this, and he became so angry. And anyway, he was already angry. Just the idea that being slaves to the Arabs and the Muslims, that by itself was enough, right? So he was already angry, and so he planned to kill Sayyidina Umar. He poisoned a dagger, and then covered his face, went for Salat al-Fajr. He was at the front line, right behind Sayyidina Umar. Sayyidina Umar didn't even recognize who he was, because it was dark and he's covered his and oftentimes the Arabs used to do this to protect from dust. Okay, so it was not uncommon sight to see a man covering his face. And so he went out and after the first rak'ah or so, he stabs Sayyidina Umar, several times with a poison dagger. And then everyone turns on him and he ends up stabbing himself as well, just killing himself. And then Abdurrahman ibn Auf finished the prayer. And then Sayyidina Umar was taken out. And Sayyidina Umar bled for another few days and then died. And Sayyidina Umar assigned 6 Sahaba. The 6 of the remaining 10 who were guaranteed paradise, he assigned them Talha and Zubair and Sayyidina Ali and Sayyidina Uthman and Sayyidina Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas and Talha, Zubair and Sayyidina did I say Uthman? Abdurrahman bin Auf, Sayyidina Uthman, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, Talha, Zubair and Ali. These 6. He assigned these 6 and he put on top of them Abdullah bin Umar. But he told Sayyidina Abdullah bin Umar, it's enough for one Khattab to be the Khalifa, so you're not going to be the Khalifa. But make sure none of these men differ amongst themselves. And whoever these men agree to be the Khalifa, then that's what's good for the Ummah and that's what's going to be. And so immediately 3 of them dropped out. 1 supported Sayyidina Ali, 1 supported Sayyidina Uthman. So that leaves 2 dropped out, 1 supported Sayyidina Ali, 1 supported Sayyidina Uthman, and that left there to be how was it? Whatever the numbers are, is that one of them that left Abdurrahman bin Auf. So Abdurrahman bin Auf was remaining. So maybe 1 left, 1 dropped out, 1 supported Sayyidina Ali, 1 supported Sayyidina Uthman, and then 1 was Abdurrahman bin Auf. His word would be the final vote. Dropped out meaning I support whatever you support. So that, and then obviously Sayyidina Ali and Sayyidina Uthman were the other 2. So it was ultimately, the word came down to the vote, I guess you could call it a vote, or the decision of Sayyidina Abdurrahman ibn Auf. And Sayyidina Abdurrahman ibn Auf, if you look at the way he decided this, he didn't decide it from himself. He knew that the Amir has to be accepted from the people. There has to be acceptance on both sides. So he went around everybody in Medina talking to people, talking and asking people, until finally he realized that almost everyone had said Sayyidina Uthman. Why? Because Sayyidina Umar was extremely strict and he was firm. And they knew Sayyidina Ali was firm. And they knew Sayyidina Uthman was the opposite. So they figured, let's swing back to a little bit of leniency with us here. And that Sayyidina Uthman is older, so Sayyidina Ali could rule after him. So that's probably the logic that was going through people's minds. And so Sayyidina Uthman became the Khalifa. So Sayyidina Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, who was ruler over Syria, كتب معاوية إلى المغيرة اكتب إلي بما سمعت من رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Write to me of what you heard from the Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم. قال وراد فأملى علي وكتبت بيدي. So Mughira spoke, he spoke, right? And I wrote down, and Warrad wrote it down with his own 2 hands. إني سمعته ينهى عن كثرة السؤال. I heard him forbidding too much questioning, to excessive questioning. And it comes in Judaism, it's called hair splitting. Judaism has this idea called hair splitting, right? That you ask so many questions until you get to the minutia of one piece of hair, and even that you go into that. So basically, they went into minutia, and we are told not to go into minutia, right? Don't ask too many questions. And Imam Malik has an amazing narration in one of Ibn Abi Zayd al-Qayrawani's books, in which Malik said that I saw all the people before you, and they were not of this excessive detail in matters, right? Take the matter and go with it, right? And have a good intent. And if you ask too many questions, you're going to get answers that you can't practice. You're going to get a religion that you can't practice. Some people think that a robust legal system is a sign of a great society. Well, that's actually not the case. A robust legal system indicates that people need governance. There's no self-governance, right? So if you have a law book this big and another society has a law book this big, the size of the law book oftentimes indicates the mischief level of the people, right? That they're looking for loopholes. So everything has to be detailed, right? Whereas, I mean, you have another law book which is basically a handful of laws and a bunch of guidelines. That society is probably more mature. Okay, so don't be fooled by big law books in a society actually has probably a negative indicator about the nature of those people. So he says, ينهى عن كثرة السؤال وإضاعة المال and waste of money وعن قيل وقال وعن قيل وقال and he said, she said. So إضاعة المال first, waste of money, all right, waste of money. Even Sayyidina Umar has a beautiful statement when he was said, "Oh, Amir al-Mu'minin, you have so much wealth. Why don't you expand, refurbish the masjid? We have new materials. We have all sorts of new things. Why don't you refurbish the mosque of the Prophet ﷺ and make it really splendid?" Sayyidina Umar said, "The stomachs of the poor are more important to me." It goes back to the priorities here, right? And anytime a society just forgets its priority, greed is the destroyer of society. Prophet ﷺ said, greed is what I fear for you. Shirk, there's going to be enough people to make sure shirk doesn't happen in the ummah. But greed, that's the destroyer of nations. Prophet ﷺ called it the destroyer of nations, right? And he fears that greed is what we would succumb to, and it would destroy us as it destroyed previous nations. So we have to be very mindful that success breeds wealth. Everyone wants to succeed, and we have to succeed, because the only other option is mediocrity or failure. Okay, you have to succeed, but you have to know that inside of success is poison, and that poison is great winnings and wealth. And that wealth in itself is not bad, but it does have the potential to lure the soul into competition. Okay, into competition. And one of the actual beauties of this lockdown that we're in is we're talking like who has toilet paper, right? That's a big deal now, right? Who's got toilet paper? We're rationing out toothpaste because the Instacart, you order on Instacart these days, you order on, whatever these services that bring you deliveries because people are afraid to go out. So they're using it. It's got a delay. It's backed up like a week before you get your stuff. So you're rationing out your own toothpaste. And here we were a people competing, right, in material details of material life, and here we are rationing out toilet paper and toothpaste that quickly. It's really a sign of Allah's qudra. That quickly people are rationing these things out, right? And so nations go through this, right? They go through this high of success, and now all of a sudden they've completely forgotten that what they have is not a given. Right? The foundations of like bills are paid, homes are purchased, cars are paid for, acquired, jobs are secured, all these things. It's not a given, right? It's not a given. You could lose it any time. And sometimes the best thing is a little bit of a shakeup to make you realize, okay, that's not a given. We'll just be thankful that we have that. Okay, just be thankful that this pain is alleviated, because the best thing is when your pleasure is the alleviation of pain. Because that sort of shows you, what's important. But when we forget and we haven't had any pain in our cars, in our jobs, in our social life, we have no fear in our homes, in our bills, all that stuff. Now all of a sudden you have to have some anxiety. Where's your anxiety going to go? It's going to go over like the minutia of life. That's where it's going to go. It's going to go in the zakhrafa, the ornamentation of life. And once a society that becomes the norm in a society, you're a dead society. You're done. You're just a matter of time. You're just decayed on the inside, and the outside is strong, but it looks strong, but you're decayed. You're completely decayed on the inside. So, إضاعة المال, waste of money. وعن قيل وقال. القيل والقال is basically that it's talk that's not exactly backbiting. Okay, but it's vain, it's nonsensical, and it's about other people. That's what qil wa qal is. So it's not necessarily backbite. It's not technically haram, but it's what are they doing? What are they doing? They put up a white fence. They bought a new car. This company did this. It's just vain, worldly talk. And why is it bad? Why is it not neutral? There's nothing neutral. There's absolutely nothing neutral. Okay, in our Sharia when it comes to talking, because is there They're neutral files, right? You got a file, someone sends you a download, you download it. It's just a neutral, nothing great, and it doesn't have a virus at the same time. However, it's taking up space. It's not neutral. Do that, and one of the viruses, the most simple virus, is you open up a thing and you open up a file and it downloads like 1,000 tiny files. So it's not neutral because that stuff piles up and it starts to have an effect on your hard drive. It slows it down. So likewise, this stuff piles up and you keep talking about people's business, you keep talking about wealth, all of a sudden you're a lover of these things, right? Slowly it's creeped in, your love for these things. So therefore, vain, idle talk is no good. You go in, and also the Quran even says looking. Don't go around looking at the homes of people and their spouses and their children. It's going to breed a love of these things. You're going to want to compete for it. Now, there is only a time that in the beginning of something, it's good. Let's say you want to be a surgeon. You should go to motivate yourself because you're about to do something really hard. You should go and look at, how surgeons live. Wow, what a great life. Because that's going to motivate you, okay, to do all the studies that are difficult, that are miserable, right? These are miserable courses that they have to go through, all right? And residency and all this and matches and all sorts of headaches. So they need actually some motivation. So in the beginning, this is why I don't know if it was Adam Smith, one of them said greed is good, right? They talked about greed. And from the one vantage point, it is good. Envy, they said, is good. From one vantage point, it is good. Okay, and that timeline is when you're sort of lazy, okay, and you're just beginning, but you have no energy, you have no will, you're weak-willed. So the best thing at that point is to dangle the fruits in front of that person. All right, look what hard work gets you. You can get a Ferrari, you could get, vacation. Look what hard work results in. So at that point, it's actually okay, right? But it's a bait and switch. It has to be a bait and switch. You bait the person into hard work, but once he works hard, right? Once he actually on the roll, okay? Once he's on a roll, you got to pull that stuff out, right? And so Sheikh Muhammad al-Yaqubi's father said something similar to that, right? Sheikh Muhammad al-Yaqubi's father gave advice to him, and I remember Sheikh Yaqubi telling us this story early on. He said that when I went for my first khutbah, I was so nervous. My father told me, go there and tell yourself nobody's more knowledgeable than you in this room. You're the most knowledgeable person in this room. Okay? But then once you get good at talking, all right? So he did that because that was his father's advice and he got good. He said, Father, I'm good at talking now, right? He said, now that you're good and you're confident, tell yourself everyone in the room has more knowledge than me. Look at this wisdom. So you don't totally eliminate certain things like greed or envy, right? But you use it in the right spot, and it really takes a type of mastery to inject it and then pull it out when needed. Inject it when needed, pull it out when needed. So he would go in and say, thinking to himself, when he's weak, think that you're the best. When you're weak. Once your weakness is gone, now you're strong, tell yourself, everyone else is smart too. Everyone has got a brain. You can't take advantage of people. So look at the wisdom of how they used to do this. And this is basically to eliminate harms. So you're using one poison to eliminate a poison, then you get rid of the second poison. That's really what's going on. Next chapter. Babu la'anillahi man la'ana waliday. The chapter of the curse of Allah being upon him who curses his parents. حدثنا عمرو بن مرزوق قال أخبرنا شعبة عن القاسم ابن أبي بزة عن أبي الطفيل قال سئل علي. Sayyidina Ali was asked, هل خصكم النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بشيء لم يخص به الناس كافة. Right? الناس كافة. Did the Prophet ﷺ give you anything specific that he didn't give the people in general? بشيء لم يخص به الناس كافة. قال, Sayyidina Ali said, ما خصنا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بشيء لم يخص به الناس. The Prophet did not give us or specify us with any law or worship, anything specific that he didn't tell anyone else. إلا ما في قراب سيفي, except a document that is in the sheath of my sword. ثم أخرج صحيفة. Then he took out this piece of paper. So he's not keeping a secret. He's going to show it to him. فإذا فيها مكتوب. In it is written, لعن الله من ذبح لغير الله. Right? Curse of Allah be upon the one who slaughters for other than the sake of Allah. Slaughtering has always been an act of worship that indicates who you worship. It's been an act or a sacrifice that indicates to people what God you honor. لعن الله من سرق منار الأرض. The curse of Allah be upon someone who steals the marker of land between people. We believe in private property. You can own private property. How's private property going to be marked? If you mess around with those markings, you're messing around with something very important. لعن الله من لعن والديه. The curse of Allah is on the one who curses his parents. لعن الله من آوى محدثا. The curse of Allah Ta'ala is on somebody who harbors a muhdith. And a muhdith is someone sowing corruption in the land. Also, it can be interpreted as someone who innovates in religion. Okay, so those are the muhdith. Someone who's bringing something new that's harming the people, or innovating in religion, and you are hiding them, sheltering them, protecting them, supporting them, okay, in any way, shape, and form. If sheltering them is sinful, then supporting them and everything above that is sinful too. That's why it's not permitted to sponsor an act of worship, some idea that's an innovation, okay? And this hadith was narrated by Muslim, Nasa'i, and Imam Ahmad. So it's very important, this hadith, so that no one should imagine that Ahlul Bayt were given some kind of law that we're not given. Now, they were given something else, or we were given something else, which is the obligation to honor them and love them for the sake of the Prophet ﷺ. And the Prophet ﷺ himself asked for this. All right, إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى. That he doesn't want anything from us except be good to his family afterwards. Why? Because Allah, he knows they will not take zakah. Some people will envy them. They might have hardship because it's sort of their purity, okay, is something that the Prophet had sought and Allah had granted. And how you get purified? By tests, by poverty, by hard situations. So they need that the Prophet wanted us to be kind to them. And who wouldn't be kind to someone who you knew was from the family of the Prophet, even if it's 1400 years later? Next hadith says, Babu, the chapter of يَبِرُّ وَالِدَيْهِ مَا لَمْ يَكُنْ مَعْصِيَةً. That he should be good to his parents as long as from the woods. Yeah, I don't know. Nobody deleted the comments, so you can put it again. The question of chapter of giving parents a kind treatment as long as there is no sin committed. Okay. حدثنا محمد بن عبد العزيز قال حدثنا عبد الملك ابن الخطاب عن عبيد الله ابن أبي بكرة البصري لقيته بالرملة قال حدثني راشد بن أبو محمد عن شهر ابن حوشب عن أم الدرداء أبو الدرداء's wife عن أبي الدرداء from her husband. Here's a wife to husband link. قال أوصاني رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بتسع. The Messenger of Allah gave me 9 pieces of advice. لا تشرك بالله شيئا وإن قطعت أو حرقت. Do not associate a partner with Allah. SubhanAllah, I mean, this issue of shirk, we read it and we're like, of course, no one's going to do shirk, right? But SubhanAllah, this was a big deal in the early days. Now, in fact, when you think of disgust, today you say there's a mushrik, we're sort of not exactly surrounded by shirk, and we don't have a past memory of shirk. Like, how many of us there can name a forefather, a father or grandfather that was so ardently worshiping an idol? It's like very rare unless you're a convert from Hinduism, right? And even their idolatry is almost like this mythology, and I don't know how many people are actually ardent worshippers of these idols. They have them, it's still shirk, but how many of them actually totally live their lives by these idols? Probably very few. I mean, I'm guessing that they're all these very well-educated, at least in America, these IT folks and doctors. So I think it's more of a mythology and a symbolism. It's still shirk, but it's not this ardent worship and taking on ridiculous rituals and ridiculous things that might exist in the countryside a lot in India, but around us where we live in England, in America, maybe in England too, it's not really the case. But we lack this disgust towards shirk, right? Because it's not a near memory. But the Sahaba's generation, they themselves and their fathers, oftentimes, either or, were ardent worshippers of idols and lived and really harmed their own lives because of these crazy rituals, right? And so one of the things that happened in the first generation is the manufacturing of disgust. If you want to move a people away from an idea, away from something bad, right? The way to do it is reason and emotion, okay? Those are the two ways to do it. You can do it by reason, you can do it by emotion, you can do it by authority. There's really three ways of persuasion. But reason, how many people actually use reason a lot? Not a lot of people. I mean, how many people can read philosophy books? Not that many. So not everyone operates solely by reason. But what many people do operate by is emotion, okay? And so the emotion of disgust is used as a tool of persuasion and of moving mass populations. The people who are not going to read a treatise. Here I wrote a treatise on why XYZ is bad. How many people are reading this? 0.5% of the population? 0.005% of the population? Yeah, they might be a very important percentage of the population, right? But you're not moving the masses just with a book. So what the people who do read these things and get convinced, they move the masses with emotion. And the best emotion is disgust. Okay, so if you look at what the anti-slave movement, one of the techniques they used is disgust. All right, they made you disgusted of slavery. Okay, in America, in England and America, this was one of the techniques they used. In the time of the Prophet, it was through shirk. Okay, shirk was the issue. So disgust was created of idols by a constant repetition. And look at this. Even if they burn you, if they cut you to pieces, right? Now today, racism is treated like this. This is what was needed. You needed to establish a great amount of disgust towards racism. Okay. Now, if you say today, hey, I'm going to burn you at the stake or be a racist, most people say it's so in people. No, burn me at the stake. I'm never going to be a racist, right? So that's an example of a modern situation where disgust has been used, all right? In this sense, correctly, disgust. Now, let me talk about another field, a little bit of a tangent. What do people use to fight against Islam? Is it really arguments that they use? Is there really an argument against a belief in God? No one's going that route. Very few are going that route. Most people are going the route of disgust, right? And they show you like a niqabi woman with a very ugly husband, right? And sometimes the woman is covered from head to toe in black, and the guy is not a handsome guy. He's got an unkempt beard, but he's got no hat on. He's got short sleeves, and he's got sharia shorts on, right? Below the knee, and he's enjoying himself. And his wife is covered from head to toe, and in the sweltering heat. And you're like, wow, the image is so bad, right? That they're showing you this image, even though that might be 0.001% of the ummah doing that, right? They're showing you that image so that you can get disgusted, right? Now, one of the biggest mistakes that Muslims make in quarreling or debating is to answer disgust with reason. Big mistake. You've lost already. You can only answer disgust with disgust, okay? That's the only way to answer it. So you're like, oh, well, that's not an argument. It's not argument. The argument from disgust is not argument either, right? That's not an argument either. So to tell you something disgusting that everyone in our society today would deem disgusting, even though it's completely relative, right? But our society would all deem it disgusting. And they combed through the seerah and found one thing that our society would find disgusting. That's halal in Islam, right? Permitted in Islam. You can't answer that by saying, oh, well, there's a reason, there's a context. You're a fool if you do that. You're being fooled, right? You've lost already. Emotion is far stronger in the short term than reason. So the only way to answer such a thing is with a diverting emotion. Either humor or disgust in response, right? To distract the subconscious mind and the emotion of the listeners with that disgust or humor, right? You have to learn these persuasive techniques because they're being used on Muslims all the time, right? All the time. And I mean, very early on, they had a lot of about coronavirus in Europe. There were a couple of these coronavirus in Europe and talking about gatherings, and then they would show a Muslim gathering, right? Because look at the association. It becomes like the Muslims are the breeders of these diseases and the harborers of these diseases, right? They wouldn't show like a gathering of nice secular atheists, right? No, they're going to show you a gathering. So they're constantly using association. What is that? That's an emotional technique, right? So it's something to keep in mind that disgust has a role. It had a role in the seerah, and that's why we bring it up. Look at the emotion that the Prophet ﷺ connects with the disgust and the strong emotion he connects Abu Darda with shirk. Okay, now Abu Darda was someone who was a mushrik, right? So there's a reason for that, the creation of this disgust. Okay, it wouldn't be the same to go to a 15, 20-year-old who's never even seen an idol before. Okay. You go to certain Muslim countries, they never even see what an idol looks like. Never physically seen an idol, right? And his father never physically saw an idol. And 15 generations of parents have never physically seen an idol. There's no really need for disgust, right? But when you had generations that were making idols and worshiping them and killing for their sake, okay, then you do need strong words like لا تشرك بالله شيئا وإن قطعت أو حرقت, even if you were cut to pieces or burned. Now, what's my proof, or the proof, not my proof, it's the proof, that this is a rhetorical expression. It's an expression to create disgust in people, that even if you were torn apart or burned at the stake, don't make shirk. The proof is that other hadiths make it very clear, from the time of Mecca, that if you're about to be killed or maimed in any way, shape, or form, you're allowed to utter words of kufr. Right? So when they took Ammar ibn Yasir and tortured him to death to the point that he was like not in his right mind anymore, and they said, say this beetle is your God. He said, this beetle is my God. Say that is your God. He said, that's my God. Because he was just totally out of consciousness from being tortured. Then he felt so bad, but before he could ask the Prophet ﷺ, very handsome men came and shook his hands. They were angels. And then he went and asked the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet ﷺ told him exactly what happened. And he said, the angels have told me what happened, and if it happened again, do the same thing, right? He said, as long as you find it's something that you're uttering on your tongue, but it's not in your heart, right? So if you're about to be killed, you're allowed to utter words of disbelief. Okay, you're not allowed to utter a word that would harm another Muslim, though. That's a difference, right? So say that so-and-so raped so-and-so, or else I'm going to shoot you. That's questionable, right? That's really up to... But to say that, to change your belief, okay, on threat of death, by your tongue, yes, as long as your heart is safe. So that's why we can say that this is a complete rhetorical advice by the Prophet ﷺ, or it's literal in the sense that don't, in your heart, believe in shirk, right? If that's what he's saying. لا تشرك بالله, in your heart, even if you were going to be punished. And that's true. So that could be taken literally. وَلَا تَتْرُكَنَّ الصَّلَاةَ الْمَكْتُوبَةَ مُتَعَمِّدًا, and never intentionally leave the prayer. Okay? وَمَنْ تَرَكَهَا مُتَعَمِّدًا بَرِئَتْ مِنْهُ الذِّمَّةِ. Whoever leaves salah on purpose, he's no longer protected. He's no longer deemed innocent. Okay? ولا تشربن الخمر فإنها مفتاح كل شر. Don't drink khamr. It's the key to all evil. All right. There's a famous story that you may have heard before, that people were saying, what is the worst of sins? Okay, is it adultery, murder, or drinking khamr? Someone said murder, obviously. All right, because you drink khamr, you hurt yourself. You do zina, Okay, you cause another person to sin, but you didn't hurt them. They willingly did zina with you. You kill someone, obviously, someone will be murdered, has a victim. All right, the other two don't have victims, pretty much. Someone said, no, it's khamr. Why? Because there was once a man who drank khamr while he was drunk, committed zina. Then there was an eyewitness, and he didn't want to get in trouble for zina. The word spread that he commits zina, so he killed the eyewitness. So what did khamr lead to? Both. It led to both things. Our mission in America, this is something that I think that we cannot underestimate. Shirk, you're like, okay, most people, we're not going to commit shirk billah. All right, most Muslim kids aren't going to commit shirk. Salah, we can work hard on that. Right? Something that could creep up on us without us realizing is drugs and alcohol. Right? This can creep up on people, and people in that go to colleges and get into that crowd, that party crowd, they drink and smoke. Right? It happens. They could be good Muslim kids, okay, but got lured into a party. That it could happen, right? And once he's going to 3, 4, 5, he's a regular at these parties, starts drinking. So, and I've heard that myself, and I've seen it. Okay, I've seen it myself. And I've heard it from Muslims who have changed their ways, right? By the grace of Allah, they've changed their ways. But back in their day, they were drinkers, and they used to drink beer all the time. So don't underestimate this one, right? And one of our secrets to our success is sobriety, and we can't underestimate that. وَأَطِعْ وَالِدَيْكَ, obey your parents. وَإِنْ أَمَرَاكَ أَنْ تَخْرُجَ مِنْ دُنْيَاكَ, even if they tell you to ruin your religion, your worldly life. فَخْرُجْ لَهُمَا. Right? So, in other words, the Prophet ﷺ saying, be flexible about everything except deen with them. Deen is a no-go, but everything else, be flexible with them. وَلَا تُنَازِعَنَّ وُلَاةَ الْأَمْرِ. Don't try to take power from the people of power. People who have power, don't try to take power from them. They're in charge for a reason. Don't try to take power away from them. In other words, we're not revolutionaries. There's no Che Guevara, championing of Che Guevara here, right? We are not a people who are every other thing is a revolution. In order to have a revolution, Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani says that a lot of things have to be in place. A lot of things have to be in place. And he said that those who truly understand and know matters and how things work have to come to an agreement that there won't be more harm than good. Sometimes, right, it's successful. Sometimes revolutions can succeed, right? In that you already have an order in place, and then you move out the king, and you quickly shift in the new order. You don't leave any vacuum. But to remove someone and have a big vacuum, oftentimes what goes into the vacuum, the worst thing comes into the vacuum. So ISIS came after Saddam Hussein, right? So Syria is a calamity, right? Everyone there is a victim. So you have to think twice about what happens before ever thinking about a revolution. And as individuals, as a direct ruling, it is haram for us. Okay. ولا تفرر من الزحف. تفرر or تفرر من الزحف. If you're a soldier, it is forbidden to flee from the battle, because at that point you're leaving your fellow soldiers open to be killed and slaughtered. The only time it's permissible for Muslims to flee is when their numbers are doubled. وَإِنْ هَلَكْتَ وَفَرَّ أَصْحَابُكَ. Even if you're being ruined, you're losing the battle and everyone else is fleeing, you don't flee. وَأَنْفِقْ مِنْ طَوْلِكَ عَلَى أَهْلِكَ. Okay. Spend on your family from your wealth. The first recipients of sadaqah is the family. So don't think that this is not sadaqah. It's 100% sadaqah. What you give to your family is sadaqah. وَلَا تَرْفَعْ عَصَاكَ عَلَى أَهْلِكَ. Don't raise your hand against your wife, all right, and your kids, because they're going to start fearing you, all right, and they're going to have to take care of you when you get older. So don't put fear into the people who live with you. وَأَخِفْهُمْ فِي اللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ. Teach them to fear Allah Ta'ala. Instill in them taqwa of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. All right. Instill in them the taqwa. Okay. That's needed. And this is the best thing that you want to teach people. Teach them taqwa. You want to teach your kids something. All right. It's taqwa. You can learn a lot of Quran, but if they never see you if they never say, let's stay away from it to stay clear in the sight of Allah, and those phrases are uttered oftentimes in the house, let's do this to gain the mercy of Allah, let's gain this to gain the pleasure of Allah, let's avoid this to avoid the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If those phrases are uttered from the mom and dad, then the children will have taqwa. Taqwa is more important than even knowledge. You can have a lot of knowledge, you don't have taqwa, okay, it's not going to benefit you. And a lot of people do. I met a guy who, he knows Islam inside out, but he has no taqwa, okay, and he drinks and does everything, has no fear of Allah. But there are also people, they have very little knowledge, but if a ruling comes down, they're the furthest people from it, right? Furthest people from disobedience. So, extremely important issue of taqwa. All right, let's get to the live chat now. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. All right, we have a number of people giving salam, and we say wa alaikum as-salam to everyone who's given salam. A lot of people giving salam. Okay, From the Woods has the first question. Previously, you mentioned a sign of a successful Muslim community is where no one goes hungry and non-Muslims are converting into Islam. Are there any case studies or documented examples for this? Yes, of course, if you want to talk about in history, Al-Madinah al-Munawwara, the first example of this, right? The people around us, the poor non-Muslims around us should feel that the absence of a Muslim is a loss, right? That the presence of Muslims is a benefit. We have to lay that foundation down. That's the foundation before we ever call them into Islam. Another great example is from Al-Habib Ahmad Mashhur al-Haddad. He's a scholar of Yemen. Yemen had a tribulation with the communists, so a lot of the scholars left. He went up to live in Jeddah in Saudi Arabia. And now, what is a scholar in Jeddah? What's the value? It's a Muslim country, right? He would spend 6 months of the year in Africa, and he chose a country that had enough Muslims that he can have suhbah with Muslims, but also plenty of opportunity for da'wah. And that country was Uganda, all right? Uganda. When he went to Uganda, he would go out into the wilderness where no Muslims have ever gone before, okay? Believing firmly that this was fard kifaya on the ummah to give da'wah, okay? So he went out, he would go out with his people, and they would meet with these tribes. Now, did he go and say, here we are Muslims, and we'd like to give you la ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah, Allahumma ballagt, Allahumma fashhad, wassalamu alaikum, goodbye. All right, now it's up to you. No, this is not what he did. What he did was he established good bonds first. One of the things he did was he gave them food when they were in need. He gave them clothes when they were in need. He would sit with them, eat with them, not talk any deen, just good relations, and give them food and give them clothes until years past of this, trust was developed. Okay. Trust was developed. And so when they would eat together, after eating, it's common for both the tribe, both the Muslims, the Yemeni Muslims and these, is after you eat together, you bring out a poet, you bring out a munshid. They had something similar to that. And so one time they brought out their singer and dancers and beating drums. Okay. They were male dancers. He was not going to sit to watch female dancers, right? That would have been haram. But they were male dancers doing like a traditional dance. These were literal tribes out like in the old days. We're talking in the 50s here, 60s. And so what he said, okay, this is a chance. Let's bring our munshid. He brought a Muslim munshid, right? Hit the duff and the qasidas, and he took an opportunity. They like songs. So let's turn the chorus here into La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah. And then they started singing the chorus with him. So very slowly, they become accustomed to Muslims. They trust them. They like them. They're benefiting from them. Over time, he then gained so much trust that he invited the chiefs of these tribes into Islam. He showed them the benefits of Islam. And he invited the chiefs into Islam. Many, many, many chiefs entered Islam. And when the chief enters Islam, the whole tribe enters Islam. Now, you won't believe that the number of people who entered Islam is a range of around 130,000 people to like 160,000 people entered Islam. Okay, of course, in the tribal societies, you get those massive numbers because once you get one chief controls like 50,000 people, right? Another chief can control, 20,000 people. So if you convince the chiefs, and it's not one chief, it's chiefs. It's like there's a head chief, but he also has his shura, right? If you convince them, right, you're convincing thousands. They now influence thousands. Unlike going to New York, you want to go do dawah in New York, you're doing dawah to individuals. Now, the best example would be doing dawah to like political parties. Because wherever for example, the Republican elite, the Democratic elite, whatever that decision-making class, whatever they latch onto, millions of Americans will latch onto. So the tribe in America is more like the political parties, more so than anything else. Okay? And you have celebrities. You get one celebrity to go one way who have a ton of influence, and thousands may follow. All right? That's why it's important to give dawah to the elites. Are they, as individuals, more special than the common folk? No, but as influence, it's greater. So many common folk will be saved if the elites are on the right track. So that dawah to the elites is in fact dawah to the people, right? It is in fact influencing the people. And so Habib Ahmad Shahur Haddad is one of the best examples of this. Our philosophy of dawah, to establish good relations, trusting relations with the local populations that are needy, right? The people who are satisfied, they don't need us. They don't need to talk to us, right? They're satisfied. They're busy with their dunya and their lives. But the masakin, that's a door to us, and that's an obligation upon us. And we are establishing good relations, and it's going to take years. It's not something that takes weeks or months. Now, you should go into a zone that's safe, because we did make one mistake, where at one point we went in to the to a certain part of town that was a pretty rough part of town, and in the name of this, we brought them all into the masjid. Okay, or brought a lot of them into the masjid. Phones were getting stolen. Weird stuff was going on. It wasn't smart, right? It wasn't smart. We're strangers. We don't know them, right? So, and they don't know us. So it was too much too soon, and it was bringing them into the masjid. Tends to be community centers, right? And it's family centers. It's centers where children should be free to be able to go down the hallway and pretty much recognize the faces, right? You shouldn't have to worry about the children walking in the musalla or in the hallways. So that was a mistake that we did, and you shouldn't make that mistake. But we go to those areas of the neighborhoods and try to give them food. Muslims say Islam has lots and lots of rules. Can you explain why? Actually, we don't have that many rules. We actually don't have that many rules. If you compare it to like other systems, what are the rules? I have a ritual law book over there. It's shorter than this, right? And whenever your law books, Sharia law books, are big, it's because the section on, it's number one, footnotes, and number two, commentary. It's the section on trade that's so huge. Zakah is so huge. Financial matters is huge. Okay? But I could probably sit and give a 10-minute lecture on the major things that a Muslim in everyday life that he can't do. It's not going to be that much. Many people don't ask questions compared to ulama answering them. What is the threshold of questioning? The people in the masjid have been in there for a long time, but many have no basic ilm. This is really up to the ulama and the imams to establish classes. And Imam al-Haddad from 300 years ago, he said the sign of a good Muslim community, society, country, population, is that the ulama, they're constantly going to the public with wa'adh. And wa'adh is, it's exhortation, reminder, instilling piety into people, and repeating the most basic fundamental rules of Islam. We don't backbite, we don't take usury, we don't fornicate, we don't drink, we pray, we fear Allah, there's afterlife, the afterlife looks like this, the angel of death is going to come to all of us. These basic fundamentals of the deen. He says the imams, when they constantly do this, non-stop, you're not going to go a single day in America, I guarantee you. If you're living a normal life exposed to billboards, TV, internet, I can almost guarantee that you won't go a single week without seeing 3 or 4 advertisements for alcohol. I can guarantee you. I mean, if you watch any movie that's rated maybe PG-13 or R, there's going to be alcohol reference. If you're driving down a highway, you're going to see Miller Lite, Budweiser. We memorize their names. If you watch a sports game, you're going to see Coors Light, Miller Lite, Budweiser. Okay? If you listen to the radio, any exposure to any media, it's an onslaught of alcohol to the point that there's an absolute opposite of a disgust factor. Now, you want to know what kind of disgust factor that we talked about disgust earlier. We have to manufacture disgust of alcohol. It's so common. It's too common, right? It is like almost tempting. So we have to manufacture a disgust for alcohol. If I was to take over a little city, one of the things that I would do is manufacture a disgust for alcohol. Show all the accidents. Show all the people's livers, right? All these things. What is the anti-smoking campaign? When it was in its heyday, maybe 10 years ago. Today, it's dying out. But what was their method? It was to show someone who had a surgery that their voice box was damaged, their throat was damaged, right? And they talk in this robotic way. Or to show the lungs. What does the lung look like? What is all that? It's the manufacturing of disgust. Okay? So we have to manufacture a mahabbah of Allah and His Messenger through events, through programs, through anything, right? Through constant talking. Manufacture a love of knowledge, right? There was an amazing question that Peter Sanders, the photographer, he put out to a bunch of kids. He came upon some Muslim kids. And he's doing a project that's very unique that most Muslims are like, we've never seen a project like this before. He said to them, how many of you have heard of Islamic extremist terrorists? Raise your hand. Everyone raised their hand. We're talking 8, 9, 10-year-old kids. Everyone raise their hand. He said, how many of you have heard of awliya? Nobody raised their hand. Right? We have a problem if that's the case. If all that's in the consciousness of your common Muslims, they know about all the bad stereotypical personalities in your ummah, but they don't know the heroes. And we're not talking heroes from Abu Bakr and Umar. We're talking about living now or just died. And so Peter Sanders is going on. Now, this is all about persuasion, almost like the marketing of Islam. Who are our heroes? If you have an NBA, what is the marketing of the NBA? The players, all right? Why does the NBA have far greater ratings, right, than any other sport? Number one, they don't wear face masks, right? They don't wear helmets. You can see the player on the court. Football, you don't know anyone's face in football except for the superstars, right? Everyone's wearing a mask, a helmet, right? And so in the NBA, secondly, there are not that many players. Every team only has like 15 players. So it's easy to memorize the players. The number of players is not that many, and their faces are in the camera all day, all game long, okay? And so by knowing the people are the marketing of the game. Likewise, the people are the marketing of the religion. So when we're trying to persuade people towards this deen, use people, okay? And so he's writing a book on those salihin of our century. Now, we don't stamp anyone say he's wali. We say he lived the life of a wali. He has the signs of wilaya, of piety, right? It's sufficient that they're pious, believing Muslims. So he's writing a book on these people. And he puts their pictures, biographies, stories, so that you can be attached to living Muslims alive today, right? Without making claims about them, because there is a boundaries we have to observe. But you market a religion by its people, not by its ideas, okay? Not by its minarets. Who cares about minarets? That's history. I want now, right? You don't go marketing the NBA by Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. They're retired. You market the NBA by the players today. You don't market the NBA by look how beautiful the Staples Center is. Look at how beautiful Madison Square Garden is. Who cares? There's just a building, right? It's the player, right? And the player has to interact with fans. So they go show you, look at the player interacting with the fans, signing. So we need to bring forth who are the pious Muslims today that are great examples. Because who's alive today, he might not be the best of guidance. He's just a human being. He's not the Sahaba or the Prophet ﷺ or the older Salaf. So he's not the best. He's not going to be your source of guidance, but he's your source of inspiration. That's the big difference. The past, The further back you go is the better source of guidance. But the closer you come is the stronger source of inspiration. That's the difference. Okay, and it's extremely important. Question from a brother: if siblings fight for parents' attention and the child naturally has an awe with family, how should they save themselves from siblings' attacks, sometimes physical? It's getting late, but we should probably cover that in another time. Jadda Rashid said, in the era we live in now, shirk is subtle. It's the erection of statues to maintain adoration of leaders. That's totally true. It's the shirk that is a type of, and some of these leaders, she said, they were racist leaders, and yet we're supposed to honor them, right? It's very true, because shirk is not just what you bow to, it's who you obey and who you follow, right? And that's the type of shirk that's not exactly the shirk that puts you out of Islam, but it's a major sin. It's who you obey and who you follow. So if you obey and follow certain tyrants and leaders, even thought leaders, like Foucault, Marx, okay, Darwin, and you are enamored by them, that's not going to put you outside of Islam, but it's going to put you probably close into heresy. If Saddam Ahmed Khan says, if someone are motivated by greed and envy, then doesn't it get difficult to get rid of these two traits? That's why it's very difficult, right? Very difficult once you get on that track to get off of it, okay? But if a person has a mastery over their soul, they could say, yes, have a little envy right now, have a little greed right now, just to get the ball rolling and then pull back. But it is a risky path, that's for sure. Take another few more questions. Unfortunately, we can't get everything to the live chat, but let's move quick. Let's do a rapid fire. All right, quick 60-second or 10-second Q&A. A wife has to break her sunnah fast if her husband requires so. I mean, he shouldn't really, but if it's dire need. I mean, he can't hold himself for a day. Does or must she also break her fast if she's doing Qada Ramadan? Answer is no. He cannot say, I need to love you right now, break your Ramadan fast. He can't do this. How can we become unapologetically Muslim? Have knowledge and love. Love and knowledge, those two things. You won't never apologize, because you'll realize you're betraying God and his prophet. Sometimes people cave into pressure. Forgive them if they cave into pressure. People can cave into pressure. No one today is perfect, because there will be more and more pressure to be less Islamic in society. Totally true. Forgive and overlook the flaws of those who cave into pressure. But cave into pressure has limits, right? If you caved in yourself, that's up to you. But if you caved in as a leader, right, and then betrayed Islam in front of everyone and are leading people down the wrong path, that's a whole different story. In the deen, was any pious person a phlegmatic? Phlegmatic means what exactly? It means that he was like, is that like a nature, a temperament? Just be specific. I can't remember exactly what the phlegmatic temperament is. Saddam Ahmed Khan, if there is any cohesive plan and no vacuum between takeover and removal of the current corrupt ruler, then does it become permissible? Allahu Alam, it can become permissible depending. I don't want to comment on it, but the dominant rule is it's not permissible to do revolutions. Could it sometimes? Yes, it could sometimes be permissible. What is taqwa? Good question. Luis Gamercool 23 says, what is taqwa? Taqwa is to be conscious of Allah on all in our affairs. All right. So if it's an action, then we ask, what is Allah Ta'ala's statement on this? What is the Prophet's statement on this? Is it pleasing to Allah? If it's a feeling, even emotions of hatred, of envy, we should ask, is this a feeling that Allah loves? Or is it something he warned us against? So that's what taqwa is. It is being aware of the boundaries and limits of Allah outwardly and inwardly. Abdul Haq says, if I make up qada for fard salah I missed in the past, does it get multiplied in the month of Ramadan? Yes, inshallah. Muhammad Nagori, what constitutes the shar'i beard? People can you show by pointing with your hands on your face. Can you show? The shar'i beard has differences of opinion. Number one, Shafi'i said the limit is the 3 days of not shaving. That it grew out for 3 days, that's a beard. Okay. In the Maliki opinion, for example, there are two opinions. The first opinion, it should be no less than the qabda, which is like this much, the fist length. And another opinion, it should be no more than the fist length, because that would constitute showing off and getting attention. But the beard is this right here. This is the beard. Okay, this part is the beard. Now, have there been some random opinions that say only this is the beard? Yes, but pretty much this is the beard if it grows out. Other opinions, like the Shafi'i school, holds that the beard is a sunnah altogether. So you can keep that in mind as well. But the other three schools hold that it's a wajib for a male to have a beard. That's his hijab. A woman wears hijab, a male has a beard. That's what indicates his Islam. Okay, and that he's a male. Rima Jafar. We're now closing in on 1 hour, so we're on rapid fire. My friend has a brother who is an anesthesiologist in New York working crazy hours. What's the ruling of fasting and pandemic for him? If he gets sick because he's working so long, he's about to faint, he can break his fast. If he is operating on someone to the point that his fast can make him so dizzy he could kill the person, okay, or do permanent damage, he can break the fast. Samia Samra, assalamu alaikum everyone. If one is able to donate plasma, blood, to help someone fight corona, are they able to do so and fast, giving Ramadan is upon us? Yes. However, we would say that if it's at this moment to save a life or to save someone from a permanent illness or a permanent handicap, then yes, he could do it at that time and go into the risk of losing his fast. However, he should do it at nighttime. Right, I'm sure that if he's going to the hospital, they're going to be open for him at night. I don't know, but I'm assuming. But the option is he should do it at night. If he knows he's going to do it, he should make sure to eat a lot and do it closest possible to Maghrib so he doesn't have to break his fast. If there's no dire need and it's just general charity, then he should not do it while fasting. Right, it's highly, highly discouraged for him to do it while fasting, because if he does and then he gets so dizzy he has to break his fast, then that's an intentional breaking of the fast. Assalamu alaikum. Should a girl who needs to make up prayers of previous years also count her period days, or can she subtract them? What if she's not 100% sure? She doesn't have to make up her period days. However, when you calculate how much prayer you owe, you have to make sure that this number is 1,000% would cover what you missed. So you're going to go overboard. So let's say I didn't fast for like 3.5 years. Was it 3 years and 6 months? 3 years and 8 months? 3 years and 4 months? Let me just do 4 years. Because 4 years, I have 100% guarantee that I've covered all my missed fasts, my missed prayers. The Big Akbar says, what are the evidences to show that splitting the khatam of Quran is not an innovation, meaning giving 30 people one juz each? It's a khatam in the sense of... I don't know the answer to that, to be honest with you. If it's Ifsal al-Thawab means to intend the reward to go to someone died, who like a dead Muslim, then they'll all get the reward. Okay? And if it is, Allahu Alam on that one, whether it's just treating it as a khatam, Allahu Alam. There's not going to be harm in it. There's the only question is, when they close with a dua, will they all get the ajr, the reward of the khatam or not? And I think that either way, it's that's really the debate, which is really a non-issue. Allah is generous; He'll give reward, inshallah. Who was writing the book on Muslim heroes? His name is Peter Sanders and his friend Michael Sujic. Okay, Peter Sanders and Michael Sujic. Diana, if it's time for Qiyam but one hasn't prayed Isha yet, you have to pray Isha. Gotta pray Isha. Okay. Rebecca Gama says Peter Sanders is writing the book on Muslim leaders, right? And it's a beautiful book. Muhammad Abdi, how would someone go about getting their siblings to pitch in on bills and house responsibilities? Reason isn't working, so how should they try emotion? The dad should really try that, and the mom should try that. If it's your siblings, you can use embarrassment, and if they're not embarrassed, then nothing's going to move it. As the Prophet ﷺ said, if embarrassment doesn't move somebody, then they'll... If you don't have embarrassment, that you're not pitching in, that you're a freeloader. If you tell someone he's a freeloader, which means that you just live off other people's back, and they don't get embarrassed by that, nothing's going to work, except maybe kicking them out. Waj Hussein, assalamu alaikum wa alaikum assalam. On disgust of alcohol, 100,000 people have died over the last 10 years in traffic accidents due to medical impacts. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. It's far worse, I think, than many other drugs, than any other drug, 1-to-1. That's for sure, right? And maybe even like alcohol versus like 5 drugs, alcohol would outweigh it. Alcohol might even, I heard at one point, it outweighs in its deaths all other drugs combined. I don't know if that's true or not, but we have to keep making the future generation disgusted with alcohol because they're seeing it everywhere, right? Miriam's Kitchen Diary. If I can fast Ramadan, what can I do to make up for that? If I can't fast Ramadan. If you cannot fast Ramadan due to a permanent sickness, then you pay fidya and you should read a lot of Quran. The Ramadan is a month, if you want to know how, if you did well in Ramadan, it's simply by how much Quran you recited in the daytime and how much Quran you recited in the Taraweeh. Taraweeh is more about reciting a lot of Quran as opposed to a lot of rak'ahs. AA says book writing takes a long time. How long did it take you to write your book? Years. It's taken years. And not only that, I'm just pulling it off the shelves right now and redoing it. The Big Akbar, I'm a layman. How do I do my zakah for the years I missed? Estimation. Do a generous estimation of what you missed. Okay. When is the next halaqa? Alhamdulillah, he likes every Monday through Friday in the evening. We do these classes. Subscribe to the channel so that you can get the notifications, and also subscribe to the email at nbic.org to get the notifications. Every Monday through Friday, and Saturday we're off, and Sunday morning at this time. However, Ramadan is coming in. So once Ramadan starts, in the evening times, we're going to give a very short halaqa, and you could join our Ramadan evenings with us right here on YouTube. So subscribe to the channel. I feel like one of these YouTube people. Subscribe. I should have a like button. Like this button right here. But subscribe to this channel. Go to the email list, nbic.org. Sign up for the email there. You'll get all the information every single night of the month of Ramadan. We'll be here, inshallah. May Allah give us health. And we're going to give a short, there's going to be a Quran before Maghrib, short khatira after we eat our dinner, okay? And then a break for everyone to pray Taraweeh at home. And then we come back, and the stream is going to stay open. And then we're going to come back, and everybody is going to, we have a long dua. And then after suhoor, we pray Fajr. Okay, we're going to come on during suhoor, put some Quran on. We're going to pray Fajr, and then we're going to recite a dua, a wird, Adhkar al-Sabah, and Surah Yasin. And then we'll close. So we are meeting twice a day in the month of Ramadan. Jazakumullah khairan. Let's go straight to the question. ZB says, Jazakallah for all the work you do. How do we include children in experiencing Ramadan? There will be a children's Ramadan program. Children's evening Ramadan program. Now, because the MBIC channel is going to be busy, all right, the MBIC YouTube, we're going to be using the Safina Society channel. Okay, so go to safinasociety.org and get the children's information there. Okay, so again, you subscribe to Safina Society YouTube channel, you'll get all the children's situation going on there. So there will be a special Taraweeh program for the kids. Okay, just like story time, things like that. So you can get the kids involved there. I'm going to lose my kids' audience here. I'm competing against myself here. Unbelievable. I have a lot of children here. That's like my biggest listeners are the kids. And that's who I target the most too. They're the future, whether we like it or not. So we have to focus on the kids. All right. All these lectures are going to be saved onto these YouTube channels. Thank you all very much. Let's now go to our closing dua. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. أعوذ بكلمات الله التامات من شر ما خلق أعوذ بكلمات الله التامات من شر ما خلق أعوذ بكلمات الله التامات من شر ما خلق بسم الله الذي لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء وهو السميع العليم بسم الله الذي لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء وهو السميع العليم بسم الله الذي لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء وهو السميع العليم تحصنت بذي العزة واعتصمت برب الملكوت وتوكلت على الحي الذي لا يموت اللهم اصرف عنا الوباء بلطفك يا لطيف إنك على كل شيء قدير تحصنت بذي العزة واعتصمت برب الملكوت وتوكلت على الحي الذي لا يموت اللهم اصرف عنا الوباء بلطفك يا لطيف إنك على كل شيء قدير تحصنت بذي العزة واعتصمت برب الملكوت وتوكلت على الحي الذي لا يموت اللهم اصرف عنا الوباء بلطفك يا لطيف إنك على كل شيء قدير وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.